Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining in for today's webinar. Uh, I hope I am audible. Okay. All right. So today's session is about the disruption that has been caused by which is an unprecedented disruption, and we don't know whether such a disruption will come back in our lives. So, so this unprecedented situation. How should finance professionals take decisions and make moves, with respect to this unprecedented situation? So हमारा आज का टॉपिक जो है वो particularly about this situation है और इसके अंदर हम कुछ टेक्निकल एरियाज को भी टच अपॉन करेंगे और देखेंगे कि मेंबर्स को और एसीसी और प्रोफेशनल्स जनरली और अकाउंटिंग प्रोफेशनल्स को कैसे इस सिचुएशन के अंदर रिएक्ट करना है. We have a very experienced member with us today. और अगर मैं कहूँ कि जुल्फ़िकार हुसैन काज़मी साहब डिलॉयट से हैं और डिलॉयट जुल्फ़िकार हुसैन काज़मी साहब से हैं तो ये गलत नहीं होगा. मैं जितनी दफ़ा जुल्फ़िकार को कराची में मिला, I always saw him with this particular smile, a very smiling individual, very light-hearted, and a very, I would say, competent individual. I've been trying for a number of years, let me say, to bring Zulfikar onto the webinar and to discuss his experiences with all of you. So here we are today, and we've been successful in bringing Zulfikar onto the screen. Zulfikar, welcome to the session. I will not steal your thunder. We would like to hear about your journey, your work experience, where have you been working in different parts of the world? How has your experience been? We would like to hear all about that from you, first of all. So over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Harun. Thank you, ACCA. I guess, am I audible enough? Because there is a pop-up in front of my screen at the moment. So I'm just wondering.
You can get rid of that pop-up. Yes, yeah. Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So thank you very much. And I was also looking forward to this opportunity for many years now. Fortunately, sitting so distant from Pakistan, and in these times of disruption, this situation came in and I grabbed this opportunity with both hands, So my journey as a ACCA student also started with some unprecedented times in my life, in my personal life after the death of my father. ACCA came as a backup plan to my, being a member of an Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. I was pursuing C at that point of time, but wasn't able to do it regularly. So ACC came as a backup plan, and what happened all of a sudden, it became a priority by looking when 2 decades ago, people were like finding it a new thing in the market, internationally acceptable qualification. So it became a priority all of a sudden for me. Then I joined, I've been throughout in my career, I worked in practice firms, with bits and pieces and small ones, and started with PwC for very minor time, but mainly with EY for like 8 to 10 years with EY, and then after that, last 8 years with Deloitte, and what happened with me is I started as an accountant trainee, and then it evolved. I started in non-financial services, then came an opportunity to get myself transferred to the financial services. And their EY is renowned for sending their trainees and employees on global mobility. So I was continuously grabbing all of those opportunities. My first international experience was in Abu Dhabi and then Kuwait, like the Middle East. I went 2 consecutive years to Middle East, and but they were non-financial services secondment. And there, the biggest thing I noted about is when I stepped out of Pakistan is that audit and assurance services or practice firm is a business, and there came in the effectiveness of with the effectiveness in Pakistan, we at times compromise on the efficiency thing. So, but when I stepped out of Pakistan, I realized that a lot of emphasis is given to efficiency. Being efficient is a very critical thing in a professional services firm and even audit, because I quote unquote, few of my bosses used to say that we are not doing a social service audit as a business as well. So efficiency, I learned efficiency while working in Middle East on secondments, and then I worked with financial services group. So when I went to the secondment on UK, unfortunately, there was another disruption that came in when, at the time, I was looking for a permanent employment role. The financial crisis hit, but still, and on that secondment, it really was a really learning thing for me, because when I stepped out of Pakistan, the financial services, and I was with asset management group, so it's a really new thing for me. The business structures, the investment structures, and the investment strategies and financial products. It's a completely new world for me. So it was a very tough secondment for me. But on I tried my level best, and I kept on going to the other secondments. So I went to Dublin, Ireland, and then I started when I working with the financial services section, so I started interacting on the valuations with the financial advisory team. So they then came to know. So it all like came like a sequence, came to know about this financial advisory service line, and then was looking back to relocate to Pakistan in 2012. So this came an opportunity in Deloitte with the financial advisory team. So I probably it wasn't earlier my first priority, but being because to remain as an auditor and accountant for so long, many people do not realize that what other service lines can bring to their overall professional acumen and development. So it probably was not a priority like ACCA in the end, but it became, like ACCA as well, because when as soon as I started doing financial advisory work, I really enjoyed, because when I was an accountant and auditor, I probably looked more into the numbers and compliance things. But then the commercial side, the commercial acumen developed while working in this service line. So here I am, and now once again I felt like going global. So I just made recently a move to Deloitte Southeast Asia, based in Vietnam. Um, is expected to be the next Singapore. Let's keep the fingers crossed, and let's hope this unprecedented times end soon.
Okay. So, Zulfikar, when did you move to Vietnam, just out of curiosity? And how long is your stay going to be there?
Hello. Yeah, basically I moved earlier this year. I came in January this year. So yeah, and my role is here for like at least initially 2 years. I'm here. So let's see what happens next 2 years down the road. But at the moment, I'm foreseeing myself here for 2 years.
Excellent, excellent. So, Zulfikar, you have given us a good idea of where all you have worked in the world from a bird's eye view. Uh, what commonalities have you witnessed in various countries that you've worked in? So, for example, you mentioned Abu Dhabi, you then mentioned Kuwait, you're now in Vietnam, you mentioned Ireland, Dublin. What were the commonalities and the skill set that you had? Did it fit in all those countries and all those work environments?
Yeah, like my skills. First, I would like to answer. The skill set kept on developing. While working out of your comfort zone, you would be in a position that you would not be having a complete skill set while being in a situation. And what commonalities is for businesses, the all the businessmen of men of the world, want to make profit. So they want to make profit by any means, and all the businessmen are opportunists. So that's the most common thing I find there. And the ones probably at times businessmen or the businesses and and in the pressure of the sponsors, the management at times make compromises, while doing businesses and something. So the ones who make a lot of compromises and are not realizing that they are missing out on an opportunity of being, because being transparent, at times, being transparent and being clear gives you more opportunities, which small and medium-sized businesses, particularly across the globe, even in Europe, they are, although they are relatively less as unsophisticated as in Asian and even the Middle Eastern businesses, but still being uh, uh, non-transparent and being making a lot of compromising situations probably restrict their growth. And the other thing which I probably witnessed is uh, being compliant, is uh, commonly taken as a cost across the globe. But I guess the financial services industry is definitely realizing, but other industries are also realizing that being compliant is beneficial as well. So let's hope that going forward, the businessmen, because the always the compliance pressure are coming in from the finance people, the financial chief financial officers, and all that, and the sponsors or the CEO probably at times is in like he is partially there with the sponsors, partially with the CFOs. So being compliant is taken as a cost, unfortunately, up to this point of time. And then the willingness to transform is still, or the adaptability to change, that's also a challenge across the globe. Uh, no matter we are in Europe or Americas, uh, human nature is that it takes time to make the change and adapt to adaptability, and then the last thing is what I find really amazing about the businessmen is the ones who know why they are doing any business. That's the important, most successful thing I realized. The most successful thing realized about the businessmen, the sponsors, that I know why I'm doing this business. Am I doing this business for my next generations, or am I doing this business for uh, like is it part of my overall group strategy why I'm doing this business? It has to be being objective driven, apart from being the micro objective, which is profit making and all that, but it has to have a bigger picture. So the ones sponsors having that thing in their mind, I guess those groups or sponsors or businessmen have been successful across the globe.
Great, thank you very much. So, Zulfikar, you've mentioned 4 points, and I'd like to bring out some key messages from these very important 4 points that you've mentioned. The first one that Zulfikar mentioned was that every business is in this business for profit. Now, the message here is that if you are not a part of that profit making venture, if you are not contributing to that profit, which means if you're not adding value to the business, you're missing the game. So since every business around the world is there to make money, uh, therefore your contribution in it also defines your trajectory, going forward. Number two, I think you mentioned compliance, and compliance is always, you said, is taken as a cost to the business from a businessman's perspective, but from a finance person's perspective, it always makes your life easier. So yes, compliance is a very important subject, and once again, having the knowledge of all the rules and regulations that a business has to comply with is in a way a responsibility that rests on the shoulders of finance professionals, accounting and finance professionals. Number three, like you said, is adaptability. And I would say adaptability for businesses, because if you're left out, if you don't change with time as a business, of course, you've seen Nokia, you've seen Kodak, you've seen so many other organizations. But on the contrary, you've seen IBM transforming. You've seen a number of other businesses transforming. So that's a very clear, message for you, that businesses, if they do not transform, if they do not look forward into the future, they they have a risk of obsolescence. I think the same applies to accounting and finance professionals. जुल्फ़िकार ने एक बहुत अच्छी बात mention की about his skill set, that the skill set continued to grow. That's a very important message. आपको ACC qualification से जितना skills और जितना knowledge deliver हुआ है, that's there, but you need to top it up continuously, and that is exactly why, being a professional body, ACCA encourages or emphasizes people that you must continue to learn, you must continue to gain more skills and knowledge. And last of all, I think, Zulfikar, you mentioned the purpose of the business, and if that gets clear to the sponsors, then it becomes it becomes forthcoming for the entire organization. Again, I think that applies to you as an individual also, alongside your business. So, without taking too much time, do you think I've appropriately summarized the 4 points that
Yeah,
you've mentioned? Okay.
brilliantly, I must say.
Thank you very much. Okay, excellent. So, moving on, let's move on to the disruption. Let's start talking about what disruption has been caused by this recent pandemic. Has there Is it really unprecedented? Is it the first time that such a thing is happening? Uh, uh, so, how do you think has disruption or disruptions in the past, for example, the banking debacle a few years ago, how have they been impacting the global economy and businesses?
Thank you, Harun. Basically, I think the last 2 decades, have been the most disrupting one. Although I worked in the last 2 decades, but uh, as the evolution was quite, fast and dynamic, the biggest, although I'll come to COVID-19, but the technological evolution, and in particular the last few years for business to get digitalization and transformation, uh, I think this is there are always disruptions around you. It's a matter of your, like, it's an urgency for all the sponsors and the financial professionals. That's what going around you, and need to see that what needs to be done with all of these disruptions going around us. Technological obsolescence for energy, energy businesses. Uh, it's from thermal energy sources. It's a big transformation if the world is going for clean energy sources, not for just power generation, but for everything. The automotive industry is looking forward to a very big disruptions and all that. So yeah, the financial crisis of 2008 was probably the last decade incidental disruption, but apart from the ones evolutionary thing I mentioned. And then in recent times, just imagine in the last 12 months, what kind of global disruptions we have been witnessing. The oil price war with Russia and KSA, and the US-China trade relationships, which is now evolving in a conflict. And then this COVID-19 happened, so the businesses are in really tremendous pressure to look into all, and you have to look into your spare and span of the business, which disruptions will be impacting you the most. So this is, I guess, it's now it's an era of disruption. We are almost in an era of disruption, and probably uh, this is a big thing I'm claiming. I might be wrong. Few participants might not agree to it, but I think uh, disruption might be a norm going forward.
Definitely, I think, and that's something that one needs to be prepared for. And Zulfikar, you're very right. The last couple of decades, I mean, in fact, the recent past, before the COVID struck, I think we've now starting to forget Brexit, and we are starting to forget what was happening between Pakistan, Iran, China, India, Russia, with the Silk Route, with the Belt and Road. You know how. how America was trying to pressurize Iran, putting sanctions, etc. Um, with India trying to, continuously develop new routes into Central Europe for trade. I think all that all of a sudden has started to disappear with this recent pandemic. It's just such a strong concern. It's shook so many economies in the world, be it developed or underdeveloped economies. So you're very right. But again, you're right. If you go back in the past, I mean, when there were world wars happening, I think that was unprecedented disruption as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
disruptions have always been there and probably will always be there. Yeah. I was just out of interest. I was listening to a YouTube video where a Chinese scientist, has gone on to collect samples from the melting glaciers, and uh, out of a few samples that he could collect from those melting glaciers, he could very easily pick up about 32,000 new types of viruses that will probably hit the world in the time to come, and the world has no clue on how to cure them. So that is, I mean, simply mind-boggling of what's going to happen to us. I mean, is this world going to come to an end? So, that is what, the feeling or goosebumps that you get when once you hear such things. But you're very right that disruptions are going to continue, and therefore, uh, once again, if we emphasize the role of finance professionals as mitigating risks or looking into risky situations, and trying to steer the business through these choppy waters, I think that is a very, very important role that accountants have to perform. um, Once again, putting a question on you, Zulfikar, about the prevailing circumstances due to COVID-19. um, what economic changes have you noticed, and you're keeping an eye on mostly? And secondly, which sectors and markets globally do you feel have been most impacted by this?
Yeah, first I would like to add one thing to the previous thing. I mean, I totally agree that the world wars and the disruptions were there, like from Spanish flu and all that. But the pace of disruptions in the last 2 decades, as I just trying to emphasize, it's quite high, and and as you just mentioned about these viruses, I am not aware of it and just came to know. So I guess the pace of disruptions, new things coming to us very soon, because probably you would, as you just mentioned about Kodak and all that, a lot of inventions came in the last 2 decades and now they are dead, so the pace of the evolution of disruptions is quite fast as compared to the last century. So let's hope the disruptions are more opportunities for the financial professionals and not so detrimental, So yeah, the economic changes, as you guys have been witnessing, as the GDP has slowed down globally. A lot of stimulus packages, even Pakistan, country like Pakistan, has announced an 8 billion US dollar package. I was here listening to Imran Khan last night, and the big economies have trillions of dollars of economic packages, and then spendings are going to be low, definitely. People are expected to be changing their spending pattern behaviors, focusing more on essentials and all that. So as soon as the spending has gone down, inflation has been controlled, and the governments across the world were successful enough to cut down the interest rate. Even Pakistan has witnessed a 5.5 basis points in the last quarter or so. So this is all that's happening, and the stimulus packages is going to be a challenge, because the countries which do have a already budget deficit, to finance these stimulus packages is going to be a big challenge for the governments. You can see, although in Kingdom KSA, the thing which the VAT increased by 3 times, 15% is going to be the VAT. And then probably you will see the Indonesian government has recently launched, similar to Pakistan, a dollar-based global bond. So the governments are going to be in pressure, tremendous pressure to finance these stimulus packages, and a lot of we are having a discussions within our financial advisory teams and all that. So a lot is dependent. Governments are in tremendous pressure to meet the GDP target, growth rate targets. So they are thinking of ways to how to stimulate growth. And a lot of people think that they will put in a lot of money, or they'll try to put in money into the infrastructure projects. But if they are stuck up with these stimulus packages, which is like more like bailout packages and to save the businesses and the economy, then how it's going to be a big challenge for the governments to sustain or grow. So it's very much similar to a small business to a country, that you have to decide that you. But basically, we in our Deloitte, we are working on three phases. We are advising people to respond to the current situation, and then to recover from the current situation and then thrive. So you have to phase it out. It cannot be parallel. So let's hope that the governments are capable enough to do it, and we can save the world economy and all that. So let's hope for the best.
Okay, Zulfikar, this brings us to a poll question that we're going to ask of the audience. And the poll question is going to be about which sectors are most likely to be impacted. So let's involve the audience. Let's see what their viewpoint is. But before that, would you like to, or let's do it after we've done the
Yeah. Sorry. I guess
sector.
one thing more. I guess I missed out on the second part. The
Hmm.
businesses and the world places which have been impacted most. Asia is working like a factory to the world. Manufacturing hub. So probably, and the world is too much global. So I guess the world has been impacted, particularly the businesses which do have a complex supply chain, internationally exposed supply chain, have been impacted the most. Transportation and logistics and aviation businesses, and tourism, leisure and hospitality, oil and gas, luxury goods. So these are the business, mainly whosoever which the businesses depends a lot on human interaction and human physical activity is going to be impacted the most. And then the facilitation, trade and aviation and transportation business, yeah, definitely they are impacted.
So, Zulfikar, what do you think? Businesses who have a lot of human dependence, of course, there is some amount of digitization that they can resort to. Do you think that is the savior in this situation? So, businesses, if they start looking towards digitizing some part of their activities, is that going to help them recover from this situation? And in the meanwhile, if you can put up the poll question as well so that people can take their time to respond. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to very quickly put up the poll question and then we can continue to hear from Dulfikar on digitization also. So, the poll question is on your screens now. Ji Zulfikar, please.
Yeah, I guess digitalization was an option first, but now it is becoming essential, indispensable. It depends that how much your business is critical to digitalization means. But it was an optional thing earlier, but now I think with this all these disruptions going around, it will become too much essentials for businesses to have digital transformation. And the ones who are not going to digitalize, I must say, uh, maybe for next few years or the next decade, they might stay or they might just fade away. So
Mm,
digitalization is there. I would say, by saying this, I'm not saying that the human uh, skill set is going to die. All the human capital always evolve with the digitalization and the revolutions, industrial revolutions that we had. So probably, I must say that we still have few skill sets which is still not discovered yet to the human beings, the mankind. So probably once these artificial intelligence and digitalization will kick in, so probably those might get unveiled, and we'll probably end up with the new skill set. Our probably next generations might have completely new skill sets, which is not there in these times right now.
Mm, true. And just giving 30 more seconds to the participants to submit their responses, and we will continue our conversation in the meanwhile. So, Zulfikar, do you think that this also gives an opportunity to accountants, professional accountants, to look at their own digital skills as well? And when I say professional accountants have to continue to add value to businesses, don't you think this is an opportunity as well for professional accountants?
Yes, it is, and I guess we have to transform. Otherwise, if because you would be, I guess we all are listening that people are saying that our profession is going to die in the next few years, and I guess ACC is doing a wonderful job. Since when I was a student, I saw quite an evolution in the syllabus, the curriculum, the exam patterns, and all that. So ACC has been doing a tremendous job, and I'm sure that all the global qualifications, including ACCA, would do bring in new skill set and learning curriculums for the new accountants to probably cope up what is coming to them in the name of these disruptions, the threats that they are coming towards to us as being accountants. Maybe I guess it's time that probably we have certain which is like a 50-50 sort of technological and finance thing, because technology, everything is, then there are new subjects are coming in. I have never heard about like medtech and all that, so fintech is there already there. So probably our accountants have to transform, and I'm sure we are transforming because uh, as accountant from the fraternity, I believe that we are determined people, we are hardworking people, so we are transforming and we will transform.
Definitely, definitely. And thank you very much, Zulfikar, for bringing this in. Uh, the role ACCA is playing is very central in this. And to give every participant a feeling about what ACCA has, the stakes that ACCA has in this, I think the first and topmost priority that ACCA realizes is, you must start feeling fortunate that ACCA is there at the back thinking about these things. And that priority is that our students, our affiliates, and our members should remain relevant. They should not phase out. They should not, uh, their skills, it should not come to a situation where their skills are not needed anymore. And that is exactly why, number one, ACCA continues to evolve its curriculum. ACCA continues to invest in its curriculum. Right now, ACCA is thinking about online proctoring. And just as ACCA started thinking about it, many other accounting bodies have also will have to start thinking about it. Now it's about agility, कि कौन पहले ये काम करके दिखा देता है. Then it's also about regulators to understand that अब बहुत से businesses और बहुत से exams और बहुत सी qualifications online deliver हुआ करेंगी, online assess हुआ करेंगी. So, आप लोगों के लिए the biggest comfort is that ACCA is there watching all these developments. ACCA is continuously seeking feedback from the top businesses, from the top accounting and finance professionals in the world, and continuously changing the qualification. So let's go back to the audience once again. हमने हमारे पास poll questions के answers आ चुके हैं. Let me just share these with you, and then Zulfikar, if you can comment a bit on them. So the results are in front of you on the screen. Um, Zulfikar, you can see the results, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah. So
it's very pretty much, yeah, like to my expectations. Yeah, I guess the audience are quite sharp, and they have, although all of these four businesses have been impacted, but I must say that the audience is really pretty sharp. They have the most one is definitely the hospitality, treasure and leisure, travel and leisure, and it is going to see a very long lasting disruption or no change to the norms. This sector is definitely going to see the most probably the next few years or something like it, or maybe forever, because whatever we have been listening that there is no vaccine coming in forever. So
Hmm.
might be a very long lasting. And then definitely the transportation logistics, till the point that the businesses are not, the supply chains are not moving and all that. So transportation and logistics are halted. And let's hope that oil and gas, is although the COVID-19 has been a big stimulus to the oil and gas thing, but there are a few other things going in this sector. So let's hope for the best, for this sector as well.
Great, great, great. Okay. Zulfikar, do you think जो हमारे concepts of inelastic business or price elasticity वो सारे के सारे भी shuffle up हो गए अब, है ना? So uh, previously जो inelastic businesses होते थे, they were very proudly हमारी demand कम नहीं होएगी, हमारी prices stable रहेंगी, etc. And then all of a sudden you see that it has shook I mean everything has gone topsy turvy, after this COVID situation. Thank you very much. Let's continue with our conversation now. And my next question to Zulfikar is, so we've seen all short-term, medium-term, and long-term impacts. What areas or things the finance leaders have to keep in mind for their businesses? We're talking about short, medium, and long-term impacts.
I guess it's going to be very much simple. Keep it simple. It's going to be the basics, but yes, it the criticality will become much more in these unprecedented times. So we have to see into, as a finance leader, I would love to see my uh, or rethink my business strategies, looking into my product base and business segments or other. If I'm a group finance person, I would see into my business, the businesses I'm having within my group. So it's probably a situation that it is indispensable to rethink your business strategies and looking into your business segments for either fixing any issues or optimizing something or maybe restructuring something and all that. Then the other thing I would love to focus on the operational, then I will go more granular, and then I'll look into the more operational side of my businesses where there's room to become efficient and because in these times, normally profit making becomes a challenge, and unfortunately, cost optimization is going to be one of the critical options that you can probably will end up making some profits and all that or sustain. Then you have to keep a very close eye on your funding and credit requirements, because whether if you are not growing even to survive and sustain, you probably might be requiring funds and borrowings and all that. So that is one thing. Then I come to the supply chain, which is to keep the business as is going, so I will look into my supply chain, where do we have the risks of disruptions and all that. And then comes the work, like if I keep the supply chain intact, but I loosen up with the working capital, and so probably the liquidity management, the working capital is another area. And then definitely the biggest thing, the biggest challenge which I'm discussing with all the businesses, all the business leaders and the finance people, because I in this role I tends to have more discussions with the sponsors of the business, and they actually plays the more, because for the small and medium sized business, they act as the people who can foresee things and make the plans and all that. So financial planning and cash flow forecasting, this is the most hot question, because if you can at at times come up with a situation that this is going to happen, then you can only be able to make some forecasting and cash flow for financial planning. So this is the most hot thing that the people are discussing, how to make financial plans with all these disruptions going around.
Thank you very much. And you've also partly answered my next question, which was around planning and what are the important phases of, or what is the expectation of businesses with respect to planning. So if you can move on to the next question then. So what suggestions do you have for finance leaders towards supply chain risk management, as when the world is, or you may say was, so global?
I guess I would touch upon slightly more on the financial planning and then come to the supply chain is because financial planning, as I just mentioned earlier, that you have to phase it out, you have to plan your short-term cash flow requirements, which is probably the next quarter or so. Because at times people, when I used to go to client and ask for a financial plan, a business plan, they give me a 5-year business plan. I say, okay, what is the plan for the next quarter with all these disruptions going around? And what happens literally, Harun, businesses do not look into these. I'm referring to small and medium size. Definitely, the large multinationals and the large business groups do have separate functions and teams and dedicated staff, and definitely finance people looking into particular product costing and financial forecasting and financial planning and all that. But small and medium-sized business do not have that acumen and that like skill set to forecast things, and you have to think a little deep for building the scenarios. Probably, if I refer to the COVID-19, probably the scenario, the two scenarios I would be having is one with vaccine, the world with vaccine, one without vaccine, because you have to keep the business going. So you have to think that how would my business look like if there is not going to be any cure or any vaccine. I would say three scenarios then: if a cure with a vaccine, or cure without a vaccine, or no cure at all. So probably and then I have to build sensitivities as well into my forecasting. So this is all which probably lacks with the small and medium-sized enterprises. They either do not have the acumen, or they are not having the right resources, budget constraints, and all that. And then similarly, you people have to the finance professional have to see the supply chain disruptions, because if my I need to see which ones, what is the span of my supply chain, how is it very global, is it from those locations which have been impacted the most, and then what alternatives do I have from other parts of the world, or do I have an internal uh, sourcing alternative available to that supplier? And would that be supplier, like if I probably go with a local supplier, what will be the impact on my quality of the product, or whatever my business is? And then this is all that it's expected from the finance professionals now. Is it's probably the CEOs, the C category professionals, the chief financial officer has to, in a smaller or medium organization, they have to perform a chief strategist role as well, much more role than just being a finance professional, chief strategist and chief information officer or whatever. So and then I have to empathize with my suppliers as well, need to see what disruptions they are facing. Because let's say I am an on automotive uh, business, and my supplier do not have any issues, but their dependency on is an iron and steel business, and then if there are disruptions to the underlying supplier, then I need to look into those as well. Because if that supplier is critical to me, his disruptions is going to impact me as well. So you have to think as deep as this, if the supplier is too critical to you. And then why I'm emphasizing on the supply side is that the demand side is probably in a non-growing situation is going to be less controllable, so people can the as I've been mentioning that there are opportunities of saving the cost and optimizing things of how you do business. That's only probably because the top line, the demand, the sales increasing. It's not a growing time, so probably that is going to be a bigger challenge. So probably I need to be a little more focused. Although supply chain management is a very critical thing, being in a CFO role or in a C category role in an organization.
Right, right. Thank you. And Zulfikar, you were mentioning, availability of finances as, alongside cash flow management as one of the bigger challenges. So, what relationships do you see between business borrowers and lenders as a result of these unprecedented events?
What I see is that yesterday there were 10 people standing in front of the bank to get borrowings. Now there are 20 people, and the financial institutions credit evaluation is going to be more stringent because the financial crisis in 2008 have taught them like to be conservative and to be modest at times. So they definitely want to grow, but they do not want to take extraordinary risk, and these are extraordinary risky situations. So probably and with all these interest rates going down, to get the conventional borrowing is going to be much more difficult. That's where my function role kicks in to get the alternative sources of finance, uh, whether be it debt financing or equity financing and all that. So the funding gap is going to be the funding is required because to sustain, to keep the business for the survival, the finances are required. The funding is required. So the gap between the lender and the borrower is going to be extended because the number of borrowers or the demand for borrowing is going to increase much more as compared to the previous times.
Okay, and this very nicely brings us to this next question about working capital. And what is working capital to the business, and what impact will the businesses face if it is left unattended or if it is not focused by the leaders? I think this is
Yeah,
bloodline for the business.
yeah. I agree totally that working capital is probably the or one of the funding requirements, uh, and for to keep the operation sustainable. And if it is, as you just mentioned very rightly, it's a lifeblood to the businesses. So if unattended, because I manage my all supply chains are intact, I'm doing good, businesses is profitable. I've seen not just these disruptions, a lot of businesses fall because of mismanagement in the working capital. The mismanagement in the working capital put an extraordinary pressures on the liquidity, and then you eventually end up doing unwarranted borrowings and all that increase your cost of doing business in the name of the interest expense and all that. So a lot of profitable businesses fell because they mismanage their working capital. I'm a good profitable business, but my profits are stuck into my working capital. So the businesses, you do business for profits, but you do business for cash. If all of your cash is stuck in the working capital, then there's no point in how you do to announce dividends, or how you do going to do the growth. The cash is going to be the catalyst for the growth. So if you keep on borrowing and funding your working capital gaps, I guess working capital is a very critical thing. If and normally what happens is I've been witnessing is um, the optimization of working capital is normally has to be taken very granularly at an organization level, which normally the CFOs and the people, because they are looking at a much larger picture. So that's why a lot of consultants who offer working capital optimization services and all that. So working capital needs to be uh, focused and optimized. Optimization is not just means you probably want to get your liquidity as much as possible. You don't want to get your cash stuck in the working capital.
Good. Okay. And coming over to business strategies. So, what finance-coupled business strategies do you think are important for finance leaders in these extraordinary, time for businesses?
Yes, I just mentioned earlier as well that probably I will look into my products, I will look into my business segments that are underperforming and need to decide upon whether to fix them, sell them, or close them. Because this I'll be continuously breathing. If I have a problem child as a product, if I have a problem child business unit or a company which is bleeding, eating my cash, giving me losses. So this at times, what we have been discussing is that previously there were few things which were optional. In these unprecedented times, they are acting. This COVID-19 and all these disruptions are acting as a catalyst for making them indispensable. So probably I will look into all of this, re-strategize my business and my product base and all that, and then as I probably be doing all of this, maybe I'll be requiring financing. So I would be entering into some distressed kind of an M&A transaction if, as I just mentioned earlier, that probably finding a little challenge for to get conventional sort of borrowings and then like the alternative sources of financing can be debt yet, but M&A distress. So people would be looking to sell few parts of the business or segments or some equity for raising capital and all that. So on another side, if I am an opportunist, so I will also be looking for opportunities to grow in this situation as a CFO. Although I would definitely be keeping intact that my house is in order, just to be aggressive and just to make another move and grow and all that. I don't want to make challenges or disruptions into my existing operations and businesses. So I will definitely look for opportunities because it's very much like a buyer, as the stock exchange is also a buyer's market. So at this point of time, the M&A market or the private equity market is also a very buyer's market. You will tend to find a lot of buyers roaming here and there to and they probably, the M&A is a very detailed subject. We probably once uh, sometime we'll discuss in detail, but probably you will have a lot of private equity buyers. The special situation funds or the hedge funds would be the buyers rather than the corporate ones. They are looking for making financial gains. So probably they are the biggest opportunities. Although the few corporate conglomerates, if they have the detailed skill set and the long term objective, so they can also do some opportunist acquisitions in these times forthcoming. So that's, yeah.
Zulfikar, can you shed some more light on, when you said profit making, when businesses are contracting, shrinking, disruptions, etc. Can you shed some more light on how can organizations continue to make profit? You did mention that there could be opportunities around for some for people who feel that this is time for for expanding businesses also. But any more profit making strategies that comes to your mind?
Yes, I just mentioned earlier as well that the profit making in these times is going to be much more difficult because my top line is almost disruptive. I cannot grow exponentially. The demands are on the lower side. It's not a growing situation. So growths are restricted. So probably, I guess I have to focus more on cost optimization. I would not say cost savings, but cost optimization should be my priority. Doing alternatives, sharing costs, changing like how one expense, like the most frequent thing businesses are witnessing or people are talking about, that probably this disruption that has came in, that people are working from home. So probably even in the West, working from home for few of the sophisticated businesses and organizations, it is almost like a policy. They save a lot of administrative cost by doing so. Let's say 70% of the staff, they have asked to work in office, and 30% will always be at home working from home. So this has reduced their administrative costs. So these things, on these grounds, you have to think that what are my costs, where there is a flexibility. And then definitely one thing more is, at times, when I've discussed with business professionals, businessmen sponsors, or the finance professionals, they at times are doing something which they cannot quantify. They say, when you ask them why you are doing this, they will tell you thousands of arguments about the qualitative benefits. But when you ask them, can you quantify something out of it? Because at times, you have to transform your actions into some kind of numbers. If you cannot, then you probably miss out on what why you are doing it and all that. So probably these are the things that maybe the businesses and the finance professionals needs to look into more in these unprecedented times.
So this reminds me of a very interesting story that my father always used to tell me. So there was once an artist who made a very nice painting, and he put that painting up in on a road in a busy crossing, and he wrote at the bottom, "Please pinpoint mistakes." And the next day when he went there, he saw it was full of markings here and there. What he did was he went back and he brought another painting. He said, "All right, please correct all the mistakes." And the next day when he went there, he said it was clean and there was nothing written on it. So there may be many critics who say this is wrong, that is wrong. But when you say when you correct it, and there are very few people who come forward. And you made a very good suggestion that accountants have to have this capability of correcting things also, in addition to pinpointing, what can be wrong. Time for our quick poll, and the poll is, which are the most critical areas that accountants have to focus on. I'm going to launch this, but in the interest of time, we'll continue our next question also.
Yeah.
So just give you a minute to do this. I'll request everyone to be very quick in submitting the responses. So the questions are on your screen. The poll question is on your screen now. All right. I'll very quickly, read out the question, and then we'll move on to the further discussion. The question is, which is the most critical area of concern from these of your businesses or from your businesses or organizations? And the options are financial and cash flow forecasting, working capital and liquidity management, supply chain management, credit and funding challenges. All right. So while people are responding, Zulfikar, if we can move on to the next question, which is that how do you see the future of mergers and acquisitions, IPOs, and other alternative sources of financing? Uh, what will your feedback be, or your expert
Uh,
opinion, rather?
Yeah, Arun, I must say that as I've been saying earlier, is that conventional sources of finance, particularly the borrowings and the debts, it's going to be a very much challenge. So businesses are in need and they will be requiring more financing going forward. So non-conventional alternative sources will be the only options, or the most preferable options, or I must say that the only option they might be left with, because the banks, they have they have to be intact with the capital adequacy ratios and all that, so they have the restrictions to lend as well. So alternative sources of finances will be the talk of the town for the next few probably months or years. And M&A definitely equity based, because people would love to have until unless they don't want not want to lose control and all that, they tends to raise some equity financing, which is probably will not put as much pressure on their cash flows. So I see some M&A activity also happening, because M&A is also distressed M&A is also a kind of alternative financing. And
All
for
right.
IPOs, you just mentioned about the IPOs as well.
Yeah.
So the IPOs, probably I guess what I've been witnessing in recent past is that businesses want to go public, and they are looking for locations which do have the potential, being an emerging market like where I'm sitting in, like Vietnam, or let's say Indonesia, and are less stringent and less regulated relatively, although being a listed source of finance, the public finance would be more regulated and all that, but uh, uh, to get themselves listed in Singapore or Hong Kong or London is going to be much more difficult. So probably IPO might not be in short term and medium term, but yeah, the pattern I'm witnessing in IPO is that businesses want to go public, but want to be like with the as I just mentioned, they are not very much of fond of being compliant, so they want to be less regulated and all that. So the markets which are more sophisticated ones do have more regulations and all that, so the requirements are more stringent over there.
Yeah. Okay. Which means countries or places where flexibility to businesses is prime. I think they have a better chance of attracting more businesses now going this. I'm just going to share the results of the previous poll on the screen, and so Sukar, if you can quickly comment on them, and we then move on to the last bit of our discussion. What do you
Yes,
see as?
I probably see a very accountant response, supply chain management definitely, it's I guess people, yeah, I guess financial forecasting is definitely, yeah, it's a nightmare because the CEOs and the sponsors are going to come and ask you to give them the plans and the forecast, but to make all of this financial forecasting and cash flow forecasting, you have to think deep as into your supply chains, as I just mentioned, if how many scenarios you can build into your assumptions, to come up with those financial numbers. So definitely the resultant is the critical. Being an accountant and finance, I would have also have the same responses, maybe. But yeah, supply chain, definitely the audience response is okay, I'm fine with it, but definitely the financial forecasting is, and the working capital is also very neck to neck, because uh, I guess the working capital and liquidity management is essential for every time, not just these disruptive times and unprecedented times. The working capital and the liquidity management is always there. It has to be there, because I've seen a lot of businesses falling apart, making a lot of profits but not being able to get the cash out of it.
Okay, thank you very much. We're just going to run over time for about 5-10 minutes because we don't want to not give an opportunity to our audience to ask questions. So while we ask questions, let's put up this next poll question as well to the audience. And this is about mergers and acquisitions, sources of financing that we were discussing. So we will put this up on the screen, and at the same time, we will start looking at the questions from the audience. I saw some interesting questions up there as well. So uh, first of all, And Zulfikar, I'll encourage brief answers if you can quickly answer because we have a lot of questions. Um, Hafiz Kaleem Shakir is saying uh, our country is going more towards nationalization, so Emiratization, Saudiization, etc. Is that going to happen more or not?
I guess it's
And
we
sorry, if I can connect another question with it, and says, will there be no more immigrations also? So immigrant policy, how will that be affected as a result? Yes, sorry.
I guess it's more to do with the the probably the one the first one is probably the foreign policy, as I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
mentioned that there is lots happening around us. Maybe I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I've heard people saying that the world is going to split for next few, if not forever, for next few decades into two blocks. One is going to be the Chinese block, the other one is going to be the Americans block. And then if all of these things are true, so yes, we have to pick our sides, so be it Saudi, be it Americans, be it Chinese or Russians, whosoever, we have to pick our sides. And if this is true, probably we might have a semi-global world. We have blocks which will be we probably have blocks of countries which have trades, and the traveling patterns or international trade patterns might get changed. It's a too much debatable thing, but yeah, but this is my view probably. So yeah, we have to pick a side, whether it's be it Middle East or be it Russia, be it China, be it Americas. And the
Yeah.
other thing is
Uh,
immigration. Yeah, immigration. Yeah, I know few people who have been almost like they are immigrant. They were intending to fly to another destination, but they are stopped. And but yeah, I guess it's probably it's to link with if the world is going to be in blocks, so probably the immigration rules are going to be changing pretty soon.
mm. No, I think it's important since we ACC is truly a global qualification. People, I think, need to get answers to these questions of how our immigration policy is going to be affected. But Zulfikar, you're also right that this is more of a foreign policy affair, and and yes, you see the world being divided into blocks, and some more attractive than the others. I'll put up the poll, I mean, the answers to the poll questions on the screen. And in the meanwhile, I'll quickly sift a few more questions from the audience for you. So if you can comment on the responses, and I can then move on to the next question.
Yeah, I guess the people who uttered like who responded no is probably yeah, might be thinking that they are confident to get their funding gaps filled by the conventional sources of finance, but if not, they can approach me and I can help them with the distressed M&A.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to hide this and going back to questions from the audience. A very long question, but a quick answer from you, Zulfikar, if you can please. The question is from Mudassar Abbas Kazmi, asking organizations are near to close businesses due to shortage of cash flow, and employees are losing their jobs. Banks are demanding double amount of guarantee against loans, which is not possible for businesses to provide. In this situation, how can an organization manage its cash flow in order to run operations, especially construction companies where large amounts of cash flow is needed?
See, yeah, like yeah, he made the question a little more tough. If it would have been a journal not industry specific, then it would be a lot easier. But yeah, definitely for being as a journal answer to the question, not just covering the real estate industry or the construction industry, you have to get your sources of finance either through the stimulus packages announced by the government, bailout packages, and yeah, what my poll question also suggested, that definitely getting borrowings, getting funds from banks, it's going to be way too difficult. So you probably need to look for alternative sources of finances, be it debt or be it equity financing through an M&A transaction or something like that. And definitely, first thing what the businesses are initially, the businesses what they are doing here in Vietnam as well is they are looking to get, if they are the ones impacted most, which I personally think is unfortunately the construction is probably not as impacted as few other businesses uh, who are not having too many capital asset oriented businesses, which are much more dependent on human interactions and human activity and all that. Let's say service businesses of transportations and fintech businesses, or no, not like the Kareems and the Ubers. They probably are the impacted most. The hospitality businesses, the travel and leisure. These are the ones which have been impacted the most. So probably, I guess people have to look for the stimulus packages announced by the government, talk to the authorities and all that, and then definitely they have to look for the sources of finance. Otherwise, dissolution, liquidation is indispensable.
Mm, unfortunately. Okay, I'm going to merge two questions now, and these questions are from Salman Ehsan and Saim Ahmed. So, Salman is asking the prospects of digital growth in Pakistan due to COVID. Which sectors or industries are going to benefit the most out of digital growth? And then merging it with Simon's question, which is around international trade mainly. And he's asking about, uh, can Pakistan take advantage of the current situation? India is trying hard to get business uh, from China and those circumstances. And if I can very quickly also mention, I remember ACCA was conducting a session in Faisalabad, and that was the time when China was very badly hit by COVID and Pakistan was still safe. A lot of textile orders all of a sudden started pouring into Pakistan, but that was only like a bubble. And just as just as Corona, surfaced in Pakistan as well, the entire government had to put a lockdown, and I think that business went away very quickly. So opportunities, businesses wise, digital businesses, etc.
Yeah, definitely. I guess people have been listening to whatever is going around, and they are quite knowledgeable. That's the reason they are posing quite difficult questions. But yeah, the opportunity for the manufacturing side, I can still think, because the thing is, you have to be very agile in grabbing the opportunities, what's there already. Because I don't think so that uh, digital or the technology exports of Pakistan can compete. Oh, okay, we can be the participant, but they cannot compete as with the people sitting right next to us, like the Indians. Maybe the manufacturing. I totally agree. There is a strategy which is roaming around, China plus one, or the Japanese have given a package to their manufacturing businesses to shift the manufacturing facilities from China to other parts of the world. So this disruption, which is probably started in the name of China, U.S.-China trade relation conflicts or war, uh, were came bringing in a lot of opportunities. But this COVID-19 is going to be the catalyst, because now I think it probably will might end up again with the same thing, the two blocks, if uh, probably all these US bloc countries, they think that their businesses have, even they, if they are looking for alternatives, so they have a strategy of China plus one if they are not completely moving their manufacturing facilities from China. So Pakistan do have an opportunity, or unfortunately we have done a little in past about our energy crisis. So it is not as bad as few years ago. I was there in Pakistan, but No, so we can grab the opportunities on the manufacturing side as being a manufacturing, because Bangladesh and the Vietnam and all these economies are grabbing the opportunity. So Pakistan should also look for that. Yeah, digital exports, probably. I guess probably. I'm not sure. This is not my area of expertise. Maybe some person who can explain it better from another skill set. Uh,
Okay.
that's
Um, well, people are asking sector-specific questions, and I'm going to throw another one at you. And Vikas, this one is about transaction advisory and deal advisory businesses, government in the government sector as well as in the private sector. I mean, as a aftermath of COVID-19, is that going to grow or not after the
equitization
disaster?
or privatization. Whether we have a disruptive situation or not, I came in here in Vietnam. The Vietnamese are also trying to equitize a lot of their, like the privatize or of their state-owned, quite a bit of state-owned entities. It is already a challenge, to uh, get the government stake equitized and privatized, So within these, maybe the governments might differ because there would be other priorities from the private sector to do the bailout packages and all that to help them out with their financing and all that. So probably I can understand where this question is coming from. The privatization process in Pakistan. If it is related to Pakistan, so why because in Vietnam, IMF is not dictating the privatization. They are doing it by with the option. They want to do it. They want to privatize because they think that the government is probably better in doing few other things rather than doing few businesses. They will definitely have some vigilance and all with critical businesses related to energy or public interest and all that. But definitely they want to equitize by option. But in Pakistan, the process is being run by the people who have given us finances before these unprecedented times. So I'm not sure how much we be able to sustain the pressures from IMF and all that to further defer those equitization and privatization of state-owned entities. But definitely, as our prime minister has been successful to negotiate the debt rescheduling, or if not
I
waiving off, uh, for us or and for the world. So maybe definitely it might get defer, but not much, I must say, because it's a pressure game that we have our own specific situation, which is nothing to do with this COVID-19.
Okay, great. And there is a comment made by Bilal Salim, and he says this was a very good informative session. Thank you very much, Bilal. But the question he's asking is this going to count as verifiable CPD? So, ladies and gentlemen, the simple rule for verifiable CPD is that if you gained any knowledge from this session which relates to the work that you are doing, or if you're able to develop a linkage between this and what you're it automatically becomes verifiable. So yes, you can claim verifiable CPD units from this session. Last two questions, and the number continues to grow, but going to lock it here. No more questions after this, um, as we've already gone over by about 20 minutes. So that shows the kind of interest people taking in the session. Dinesh Kumar is asking about oil prices, and the oil prices have hit the record low. So once the life goes back to normal, what happens to the situation then? I think people have started indicating that there is going to be a huge oil shortage in the world, and once again, there's going to be a disruption there. So, what is your view? What's going to happen to the oil and gas sector?
I I guess probably I know that participant by as you just mentioned this again.
Okay,
So
all right.
yeah, maybe you could have asked me these questions on a personal note, but yeah, okay. So in a shorter to medium term, I think is because oil industry, as I just mentioned, it's a very geopolitical. There is something much more than this COVID-19 thing, which is happening with the oil and gas industry. So in a short, if let's hope, let me just bring a hypothetical scenario that if we end up having a vaccine, or by any means the world is getting back to normal, so the prices are going to be bouncing back in the short term to medium term, because the overall activity, the demand will plug in. And yeah, I'm not having a very much classified information of how the suppliers of the world are going to behave with different scenarios building in the future. But everybody has witnessed that a lot depends upon the supply and the supply management of oil towards the prices. And then there are some geopolitical conflicts from which flows from North America to the Middle East. So but in the longer run, which this is my view, probably people might disagree with it, but in the longer view, if we have a lot of alternatives to this oil and gas, maybe oil and gas would not be as uh, critical product for the future. Maybe let's say 10 years down the road,
Alternate energy source.
2030. Yeah, the alternate energies the will be uh, taking it off. So probably, yeah, oil and gas might not be as uh, precious
Mm.
as gold will remain forever.
Okay, and the last question, as I promised, the future uh, of Bitcoin and other uh, legal instruments. What is going to happen? Do we see the death of currency notes and all, and switching over to internet-based currencies? What's going to happen there? This is a question by Elizabeth. Last question.
See, I probably not the right person to ask the question about the internet currency and the dollar being taken over by Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or something like that. But definitely, we are going to witness very soon, because people were first thinking that it might take a little longer than normal. Maybe it might take another decade to have online payments and all that. But it is because it's into short and to medium term, with all these existing currencies. Basically, it is going to becoming a norm. Maybe in the next 5 years, it is you will see a lot of online payments, like transformation towards e-payments and non-cash physical payments. But
Mm.
will the world is going to see another currency and all that? So I guess it's probably a kind of a question which is probably a little more out of my topic, and I don't want to sound like it. Although I have my own view on it, but probably people might listen and say that you are sounding like a conspiracy theorist. So I don't want to sound like that.
Uh, and I think these currencies are going to be highly regulated. I mean, even when they were, being very popular, uh, there was a very strong regulatory regime around these currencies. So let's see how the regulators react to the situation now. And I don't think that the reaction of the regulators is going to change significantly as a result of COVID. Thank you very much, Zulfikar. We've taken about 25 more precious minutes from you, but I think this was worth a while. Thank you very much for taking the time out all the way from Vietnam, which means you haven't forgotten the roots. You haven't forgotten Pakistan, and you haven't
Yeah.
forgotten your colleagues and friends in Pakistan. Thank you very much
Yes.
for taking this time out for a very lovely, very informative session. I think about 98% people commented that the session was either very, useful for them or very useful. So uh, I think that's a that's a due credit that goes to you taking time out and coming online and talking about this very important subject and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much, Zulfikar, and we keeping our fingers crossed to see you back in Pakistan in 2 years. Don't stay out of Pakistan for too long, as we start missing seasoned professionals like you in Pakistan. Then, any last words from your side, and then we call it off.
Yeah, thank you, Harun. Thank you so much. It is really a pleasure, and I hope I have not made the people dull and drowsy in this fasting days, because it's almost here we are just an hour away from breaking our fast.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah. So basically, I would love to stay back in Pakistan, and I look forward to relocating back to Pakistan. But once I have certain more exposure internationally and learn a few more things, because I have been working out of my comfort zone for long, and always, as you probably I just mentioned in my initial uh, uh, introduction, that I always transformed and I looked. My life was a complete, full of success and failures. But the key thing I would like to emphasize here is within the failures, I look for the opportunity that came in through that failure, because I do not have, let's say, any other thing to do. That's the only thing I can do. That I took that as an opportunity and excel and thrive over there. That make me resilient with that thing, So I transform. So you can call me an opportunist, but you have to be an opportunist, because the options you have, if you keep on crying on those things that which is not there, which you are not successful with, you cannot do anything in your life. So for the young people, although I am aware that there are quite a number of members, but for students, if there are any, I would suggest them to stay determined, do your hard work, and be ready to work out of your comfort zone. That's my key message to them.
I think equally important for members as well. And hands down, what I've consistently learned from Zulfikar in today's session is that learning should never stop, whether it comes from your success or it comes from your failure. Learning should not stop. And I think with that, we call it a day and a very successful session. And we leave Zulfikar to open his fast in an hour's time. And, and with that, uh, we say thank you and Allah Hafiz to you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
by the
Allah
way,
Hafiz.
thank you to Vasil and Temur also who've done all the coordination arranging the session with
Yeah.
the force
Thank you,
behind
Vasil.
this.
Thank you, Temur. Brilliant idea. Best of luck.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Zulfikar.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, goodbye. Allah Hafiz.
Bye.